I'm so confident they'll make the playoffs that if they don't, I'll wear a Giants or a Dodgers jersey on one of our podcasts.
You don't need the pressure of always trying to perform here at the major league level, so that might be a good thing.
You talked about the athleticism of this Padres team last time out, and he just embodies it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the BCSC podcast live from San Diego, California. It's the Best Coast Sports Connection. I am Andy Bishop. I am joined, as always, by my good friend, Brian Vilvin. And tonight, we are talking all things San Diego State athletics. Brian, rocking a little Aztec colors. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I got a little Aztec shirt going tonight. I'm doing well, Andy. Fired up. Thanksgiving week. A lot to talk about. A lot of Aztecs football, basketball, news on all fronts. Just an exciting time.
Well, it is a roller coaster of sorts. Different news every day as it relates to college athletics with the COVID going on right now. Even more confusing and interesting as we go towards the end of the football season and into the start of the basketball season. The Aztecs basketball team tips off tomorrow against UCLA. We'll dive into that in a little bit, but we'll start with football. The Aztecs, they were supposed to play this upcoming weekend against Fresno State, but that game gets canceled due to ongoing COVID issues with the Fresno State football team. So the Aztecs not scheduled for a game at this point. There has been talk that they could play a Pac-12 team such as the University of Washington. So many storylines. We'll get to that in just a moment, but we start with a bit of a review of the Aztecs' last game, a tough loss in Reno against the University of Nevada, 26-21. Brian, I know you watched a lot of this game. The Aztecs up at halftime, and then they go scoreless in the second half, and it ends when they had a really good shot inside the 10-yard line. What was your takeaway from the game?
Yeah, that was a tough one, Andy. It was a really exciting first half for Aztecs fans. Seeing Lucas Johnson at quarterback and just the way that the offense moved. He was a throwing threat in the first half, thrown for over 150 yards in that first half, which is totally rare for the Aztecs if you watch any Aztecs football. And then he did it on the ground as well, just a dual threat option. And in the first half, it just felt like, wow, this is what an offense could look like if you had a quarterback who could throw and run, like just the perfect fit for the offense. Then in the second half, Nevada made big adjustments, and it was pretty clear that things were going to be a little bit different this half. There was also a big possession in the second half where San Diego State had gotten a big stop on third down and long, but a roughing the passer penalty on the senior leader, middle linebacker playing the Aztec position, getting a big roughing the passer on third and long where they threw an incomplete pass. So it kept the drive alive. Nevada went down and got the touchdown. And then the Aztecs had an opportunity at the end. So after getting totally outplayed in the second half, they still had a chance to come back and win, get an interception deep in opponent's territory, moving it right down the field. Lucas Johnson had some issues in the second half with some cramping and had missed some time, a couple of series. But then the Aztecs get the ball inside the 10-yard line, right around the 5, and they have first and goal with a minute and a half, and a touchdown would win the game. And they end up throwing a fade on first down. This was the play that really got me, was the first down. Like, why are you going to throw a fade to the corner? And I know you're throwing it to Jesse Matthews, who had been your best receiver, but that's just so not the Aztecs game. They don't have a 6'7" receiver or tight end who's going to go up and grab the ball, pull it down. And then second down, they ran the ball. They ran the ball on second down, which is what they should have done on first down. And then the third down play, they had a touchdown again to Jesse Matthews. The ball was just a little bit underthrown, and that would have sealed the game. And on fourth down, Nevada brought the house, and the Aztecs just threw it away. I just wish we would have seen in that sequence, first down is where you run it, see what you can do. You've got Greg Bell. He had been a little bit dinged up from the beginning and only rushed for, I think, 28 yards or something after a couple of 100 and 200-yard games over the last few weeks. But then that second down play is when you run the rollout, let the quarterback throw. Third down, you kind of have an open book, and then you're not forced into that fourth down situation. So a little bit of second guessing there on the play calling, and it just felt like a game the Aztecs should have won. And instead of going to 4-1 and being right in the thick of the Mountain West chase, they fall to 3-2 and really have no chance at a Mountain West title at this point. So it was a disappointing finish for sure.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, the game against San Jose State that they lost earlier in the year, they just looked to be, kind of in a funk a little bit more of that game. Whereas this one, I mean, there's just a handful of plays that you think they should have had that would have resulted in a different outcome. So got to be frustrating for those players and for Coach Brady Hoke that they are 3-2. And with, as it stands right now, only 2 more games on the schedule. One against Colorado State, that's here, in Carson, I should say, at home. And then finishing off the year against BYU. Brian, when you look at the start of this season, and I know it was different than any other season, you're going to have a shorter season. As it stands right now with this 3-2 team, do you think they've underperformed, or do you think they are kind of what we thought they were?
Well, I like the reference there. That's good. Dennis Creed, rest in peace. Love that guy. I got to say at this point, they've underperformed a little bit. The expectations coming in were a little bit tempered. Weren't exactly sure what we were going to get, but then they threw up kind of a stinker against San Jose State, but San Jose State turns out is pretty good, and Nevada's pretty good, but those are games that the Aztecs should win. San Diego State should have the better team. The defense has been dominant in their 3 victories, and they've had some flashes of dominance in the games that they've lost, but man, they've had a golden opportunity to be 5-0 right now and really be in the thick of some conversation. If they were 5-0 at this point, they'd be ranked. They'd have an opportunity to play against another ranked team in BYU at the end of the year. Who knows what happens this week? We'll talk about it a little bit on the options for another game this week, but you'd also have a chance to potentially play a Boise State in the Mountain West Championship, and it really could have been a very special season. So that's the most disappointing part, is that you had an opportunity and you just kind of let it pass. Not to take anything away from San Jose State or Nevada, but when you look at the schedule and see those games, you kind of draw them up as W's, and that's what you're expecting going in. So I'd say disappointing in how it's played out to 3-2, but still, a little bit more to play for. See what happens.
Yeah, well, it'd be nice to see them win a couple straight or maybe 3 straight to end the season. We'd love to play spoiler against BYU at the end of the season. Yeah. If they're still undefeated at that point. There's been, whispers of them maybe being a team that could make it to the college football playoffs. They're ranked number 8 in the country, and some experts have even put them higher. Here's the juicy story, though. BYU decides not to take an offer this week to play against the University of Washington. It would be the only team, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but it'd be the only team BYU would face in a Power 5 conference this year to, strengthen their schedule if they were to beat Washington. But instead, they decide not to play, and maybe San Diego State has a chance to play them. We'll see. I know Coach Brady Hoke said State would absolutely 100% play if that ends up working out. But there's still so many things going on that the Aztecs could potentially play another Mountain West team that, they don't have on the schedule this year that they could somehow find a way to play against. But I guess, Brian, what's your take on the whole BYU situation?
It's interesting. And another interesting piece of that is I know they were talking about potentially moving up the BYU San Diego State game to this weekend and then opening up that weekend at the end of the schedule. So BYU could either play somebody else or, the Aztecs could pick up another game at the end. But BYU, if you're going to put on your clothing and all that stuff, any team, anytime, any place, or whatever their slogan has been, saying like, oh, we'll play anybody. And then you turn down a game against a team that, is right on the cusp of the top 25, but a Power 5 school. I don't know. It looks bad when that's kind of been your claim all year. And then the opportunity knocks and they say no. So yeah, I don't know. From BYU's perspective, probably would have been a little better to not lean into that. But for the Aztecs, I really hope they get an opportunity to play somebody. I don't know if the Washington thing is going to happen. I hope it does. I just, thinking about only playing 7 games this year, and Colorado State's had a couple games canceled as well, so that's not any kind of gimme that's going to happen. So I just hope they get to play for the sake of getting to watch games and some more opportunities for Lucas Johnson to lead the offense and see what happens. I think this team could be pretty good, so I just want to see him out there again.
Yeah, you see so many glimpses of it. It's frustrating as a fan, as a college football fan, for anybody that it is a strange season, but it's like we've been saying, it's day to day, and you got to respect the health situation that's going on, and just know that it's going to be a different season. We've seen that all throughout other sports this year as well. So just got to play it by ear. So we hope that the Aztecs finish up their season strong. We'll certainly be following them and updating our website, bcsportsconnect.com, with plenty of Aztecs content. Let's move to the basketball team. It is the sport that people across the nation know San Diego State for, and our 2020-2021 season begins this week on Wednesday. That's tomorrow at 7:30. They tip off against number 21 ranked UCLA, the Bruins. Brian, we have to go back to the end of the last season and how much of a bummer the way it ended. We were anticipating a run in the NCAA tournament for the Aztecs. They were ranked top 10. I believe they finished ranked number 6 when everything was shut down. Just let's go back a little bit and reminisce at how that was and just some of your memories from last year.
Oh man, last year was exciting. Starting the season with 26 straight wins, winning the MAP, being the last undefeated team in the nation, getting up to number 4 in the rankings. There was just so much excitement and a lot to root for. The team kind of brought the city back because, in the late 2000 decade, I don't even know how we're supposed to classify that decade, but, the 2007, 8, 9 teams, and then 2011, obviously, with Kawhi, and the city was just roaring for Aztecs basketball. And then over the last decade, they've been pretty solid, but this was the team that really brought them back to the forefront and brought the city back on the side of the Aztecs. Viejas was bumping again, and the show was back, and it was just such an exciting year. A lot of national attention, getting to see a player like Malachi Flynn, who just had an unbelievable season, an All-American, consensus All-American on all the lists. Brian Dutcher as the National Coach of the Year. Just exceeding all expectations. It was such a fun season, and I really thought they were built for a deep tournament run. It was a really experienced team. It looked like we were probably going to get Nathan Mensah back for the tournament. And then to have it all come crashing down for a reason, they didn't even get to play it out on the court. It was COVID that took it away, and I just felt so San Diego. to have a team that was probably outside of that 2011 team, the best positioned team to make a deep run in the tournament. And there was no really great teams in college basketball. So it seemed like, the door was open for the Aztecs to potentially put something together. And I felt like the Final Four wasn't out of the question for this team. So they, it's just sad that was taken away from them.
Yeah, it was just an incredibly balanced team. Probably the best, most balanced team we've seen during the Steve Fisher, Brian Dutcher eras. You had that 2011 team like you had, but I remember, maybe Coach Dutcher and even some media people saying that this last year's team was better offensively than that 2011 team. So, frustrating, man. But in recent news, it was really cool to see Malachi Flynn being drafted by the Toronto Raptors. Just a nod to him and the season he had last year. We truly hope that he has success at the next level. I will ask you, Brian, do you think that he will have success, or maybe what do you think his game will look like at the NBA level?
I think so much of NBA success, at least early on for draft picks, is what team they happen to land on. And I think Malachi landed in the perfect spot with the Raptors. The Toronto, don't call me Tampa Raptors. Well, Canada's still shut down. They're going to start out in Tampa. But right now, Tampa's the center of the sports world. So that's not a bad place to end up. But yeah, I think Malachi is going to have a ton of success. He's a general out there on the floor, shoots it well in the clutch. He's not afraid. He plays really good defense. He just seems like a perfect fit for the Toronto Raptors. And I think he couldn't have landed in a better place. It was still in the first round, which is exciting because San Diego State has only had 2 first-rounders in its history. So it was nice to have that. And, I don't know. I just think it was a perfect fit.
Yeah. We certainly hope the best for Malachi going forward. With this year's team, we do have a few starters returning. We'll talk about the individual players in just a bit. But let's look at our first matchup. It'll be tomorrow, as I said, in a small little tournament that is between San Diego State, UCLA, and then UC Irvine and Pepperdine. UC Irvine and Pepperdine will play on tomorrow, tipping off at 3:30 before the Aztecs and Bruins. But, man, Brian, these Bruins are ranked number 21. They finished last year at 9-12. They were about number 2 in the Pac-12 there. The Aztecs not ranked this year after having such a successful season. Definitely a bit of a surprise to see that. But, I mean, Coach Brian Dutcher returns, of course, for his 4th season at the helm. And you see some of those other non-conference teams the Aztecs will be taking on this year. Another top 25 team, a Pac-12 team there with Arizona State. A St. Mary's team, that's always tough. They play in that West Coast Conference, always battling with Gonzaga. And then UC Irvine, that's the team that the Aztecs will play on Friday as the second game in this small tournament we have going on at Viejas. Brian, feeling some disrespect about the non-ranking for the Aztecs?
A little bit, but that more is just because San Diego State, I don't know what they have to do to get any type of preseason respect. They always outperform what people think of their expectations, but they're so rarely given preseason accolades outside of predicted to win the Mountain West. So I would love for them to not have to go 15-0 before they start getting consideration for the rankings. But if you look at this non-conference schedule again, it's about as stacked as you can possibly get for a COVID season. You've got UCLA and Arizona State, which are the top 2 teams in the Pac-12. BYU and St. Mary's, like you said, are right behind Gonzaga as the 2nd and 3rd best teams in the West Coast Conference. And UC Irvine is predicted to win the Big West. So you've got of these teams, this outside of playing against Gonzaga or maybe University of Arizona, who's actually not as good as UCLA and Arizona State this year, I don't think you could put together a better non-conference slate. So if the Aztecs can beat UCLA, beat UC Irvine, and then play well against Arizona State, I think they should be ranked. I think they put together a great schedule here of non-conference opponents to give them some respect. Put a little respect on that name. And I'm fired up to see what happens. And it all starts tomorrow night. I can't believe it.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy that we got here. UCLA was at the bottom of the rankings in their conference last year before they finished their season at 11-3. So we'll see how they look. I do know their coach Mick Cronin, kind of was like, beware. Yes, we may be ranked top 25, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything at this point. So obviously it's going to be two new teams to some degree. As I mentioned, the Aztecs will have 3 starters returning this year in their lineup. That would be Matt Mitchell, Jordan Shackle, along with Nathan Mensah. Of course, Matt Mitchell, just kind of that veteran presence that you love having on your team, averaged 12 points a game and 5 rebounds. Shackle, 10 points a game. And then Mensah, who you mentioned, Brian, only started the season and then went down with that injury. One of those big guys inside that, could maybe average 10 and 10. So it'll definitely be good to see him return as well. Any other starters or any other returners, I should say, Brian, that you maybe have an eye on this season?
Well, I'm really excited to see the step that Matt Mitchell takes, because he really turned it on last season and became a huge factor for this team. Jordan Shackle and Matt Mitchell, they've been at San Diego State this entire time. This is clearly going to be their team. So just to see how those guys perform, it seems like San Diego State, when they get seniors that come through the program the entire time, those guys just put up ridiculous numbers their senior year. So I am excited to see how that plays out. And then I want to see how Nathan Mensah comes back. It was such a tough break that he got a year ago, having a condition that kept him off the floor. It wasn't even an injury. It was a heart condition, and something that probably drove him crazy because you can't see it. It's just there in the background. And yeah, so to see how he comes back, I am very excited about that. And then the Aztecs, they've got a couple of transfers that I'm very excited about as well. So we will bring that list up here and take a look. The one that I'm the most excited about here is Gomez from Cal State Northridge. He led the Big West last year in scoring, 3-point shooting, 3-point percentage, free throw percentage. Like, this guy, he's only 5'8", a small guy, but he can score, he can fill it up from the outside, and I think he's going to be a great complement to this squad. The transfer from Maryland, Joshua Tomek, he's a big guy who hasn't gotten a ton of minutes, but he's 6'9" and 230 pounds, and the kind of presence down low that could probably just be a beast for the Aztecs. They might not need him to score much, but if he can play defense, then he can play for Coach Dutchers. So I'm very excited about him. And then as we'll look here at some of the freshmen that the Aztecs have, they've got a couple of pretty solid ones. And I'm looking forward to seeing mostly Lamont Butler out of Riverside Poly. He was one of the best players in the Southern section. He was a top 50 point guard, a 4-star recruit. Che Evans, also a 4-star recruit as well. And then Keith Dinwiddie out of Fairfax. He turned it on, became a really good player in his last couple of years. Won a couple of LA City section open division championships there at Fairfax. Che Evans coming out of Philly. So bring him into San Diego here, give him a little bit of West Coast flavor and see what happens. But yeah, I'm really excited about this Aztecs team. There's a ton of potential. they're going to have – Coach Dutcher has said he thinks that they could play 10 deep and not really have any drop-off. So especially in a COVID season, to have guys who, you know, you can play deep, there's probably going to be issues with endurance and being able to play. They also have to play on the road in the Mountain West, which is difficult because you've got altitude at all these venues. So, yeah, having depth is going to be huge for this Aztec team.
Yeah, that's a great point, Brian. And not only are they going to be playing in these different locations, it's also going to be kind of a crunched season compared to years past, just in the sense that they have those non-conference games, and then they play every single team in their conference. And then the last series with Boise State is February 25 and February 27. So normally you're back another week or two going into the Mountain West Conference tournament. So that's just going to be a lot of games in a short amount of time for these guys. You do see their schedule there with the home opponents. We said, early on, I think last week, that against Colorado State, it was set to be December 12th and December 3rd and December 5th for that first series. But that, as you said, Brian, we still don't know about that. But yeah, you see the rest of the schedule there at home for the Aztecs.
Yeah. So these home opponents, you like to see someone like Boise State come into town, Nevada, Wyoming, Colorado State. It's good to bring them to Viejas when you have to play two games, because you're playing at sea level versus going and playing at altitude at Wyoming. I can't imagine playing back-to-back like a Thursday, Saturday in Wyoming. That Saturday game would just be treacherous. So I think they got a favorable home schedule. And then as we look here at the away opponents, I think that San Diego State, they pulled a pretty decent schedule here. They play at UNLV, where they've always had a ton of success. They play at Utah State, at Air Force, and at New Mexico are the two altitude games. But again, they've had a ton of success at the Pit in New Mexico, and yet you get to play there with no fans. So, or if they have fans, it'll be limited. That's a place where normally the crowd becomes a huge impact. That's seen like Viejas is one of the best facilities and crowds and environments in college basketball. So getting to play them with no fans and having that be one of only two high altitude series, I think the Aztecs got a pretty decent schedule here.
So for another year, it looks like the Aztecs are picked to finish first in the Mountain West Conference by the media. They've pretty much been there or voted second going into the season the last 7 or 8 years, I want to say.
Yep.
So there's definitely the expectation, especially from what we saw last year. Is there anything else, any particular aspect of this team or the coaching that you're looking forward to this season, Brian?
Well, I love Brian Dutcher and what his staff has done. So it's always fun to watch them play. They're going to play really good defense. That's something that from the Steve Fisher times till now, that's always going to be at the forefront of Aztecs basketball. So that is always something that I'm looking forward to. But yeah, just this season, because of COVID and everything, and because of how last season ended, there are so many question marks. And the only thing that I know for sure is the Aztecs are going to play monster defense. I think they have enough scoring. Matt Mitchell became a scoring threat last year. Jordan Shackle has always been able to shoot the basketball well. And then this transfer from Northridge, who can shoot the three as well, like he could just be another offensive threat out there. If Nathan Mensah can come back healthy and be a stud, I think this could be another really good Aztec team. I don't know if they're going to be 25-0 good, because right now they've got 25 games on the schedule, but I could imagine seeing them, be 22-3, 23-2, high end. I can't see them going worse than, 18-7 or so. So very high expectations this year, even though the season could be strange and who knows when games are canceled or not. And yeah, the COVID piece is, I guess, the X factor once again. And then looking at the NCAA tournament, is there going to be a tournament with 68 teams? Are they going to go down to 48 or 16, just bypass the actual tournament? That's yet to be seen as well. I think it was ESPN put out their college basketball bracketology, and they're putting out different versions of it. It's not just a 68-team tournament this year. They've got a 16-team version and a 48, and just to see, because we don't know what's going to happen the rest of the way. So a lot of unknowns, but a lot of excitement here in San Diego. Another Brian Dutcher squad we get to watch.
Yeah, man, it'll be good to see Aztec basketball return. One of the few sports institutions you can count on here in San Diego in recent years or within the last couple of decades. So really excited to see what the Aztecs team looks like this year. One more bit of San Diego State news. Brian, you've probably seen this out there on the internet a little bit. Of course, the stadium seats at the old Murph in Qualcomm, SDCCU, they are being put up for sale by San Diego State. Brian, you need a chance to purchase one of those seats? Or I think you have to buy them in pairs.
Yeah, a pair. Is it 150 a seat and then 300 for the pair, but you have to buy the pair? I don't exactly know how it goes. But
so I saw that the $299 for a pair is for special donors, like season ticket holders. For the general public, the sale that starts on December 1st, it's $329 for a pair. So yeah, I mean $65 a seat, roughly.
Yeah. I just don't know. It would be cool, like a nice little nostalgic thing. But a lot of my memories in that place, I've got some Padres, I've got some Aztecs, I've got some Holiday Bowl and even Poinsettia Bowl when the Aztecs were playing in that. But for the most part, I would look at those seats and think of the Chargers, and that's still a little too fresh of a wound. So I don't know if I could do it. It might be a cool thing to see like 20 years from now, but I wouldn't want to look at that thing right now. Put it out on the balcony and I'd probably throw it off.
Yeah, man, I'm tempted. Same with you. Like most of my memories are Chargers. My family had, my grandpa had season tickets for going back actually to Balboa Stadium, but while I was growing up for several years in the mid 90s during, some of those great teams. So I very much know how hard those seats are to sit in. So it's definitely not a comfort thing. No, it's certainly a nostalgic thing. I don't know. Part of me just wants to buy two and, put them in the office or somewhere around the house just for a nice little decor. But we'll see. I'm interested to see how many are actually going to be sold.
If I owned a home and like had my office set up or like a man cave or something and was really trying to dial it in, I could see it then. Right now, I'd probably just put it in my parents' backyard as a placeholder until I have somewhere for my own. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't think the timing's right for me. But it would be cool. I'm not hating on anybody who does it, and I hope I get to go sit in sometime, just for the sport of it. When you get them, I'll come sit in one of the seats.
Yeah.
Once COVID's over.
Yeah, exactly. People can sit by each other.
Once we're allowed to see each other, yeah. Once we're doing this in person again and not virtually. Oh man.
Yeah, man.
I'm excited.
Crazy
I'm excited for the new Aztec Stadium. I know there was a lot of stuff going on with the Mission Valley side and the election and all that, but I'm excited that something is actually getting done, that they're actively building it right now, tearing down Qualcomm. It's a sign of progress, and all the renderings have looked really cool, and I can't wait to go to Aztec Stadium and drink a beer and watch a football game, and yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. It'll be a nice place to host other events too. Like, it's just, yeah, our city needs great assets like that, so I'm fired up.
Yeah, man, it's probably a past due, you could say. I mean, it's 52 years, something like that, since San Diego Stadium originally opened, like back in, I want to say 1967, 68. So most cities, move a little quicker than that. But hey, like you said, we're getting it done, and might have something else going on at the sports arena as well in the next couple of years. So definitely time for a few more modern things here in San Diego. Brian, you gonna be watching any Thanksgiving football? We've got the Texans and Lions. We've got the Washington football team and the Dallas Cowboys. The winner of that game will take the lead in the NFC East with 4 games, assuming the game doesn't end in a tie or something like that. And then you have the Ravens Steelers. What's sticking out to you on that day, Brian?
Man, could you imagine? I'll just take you back to the Washington football team and Dallas game. If they did tie that, there would be. Well, I guess Philadelphia would have to lose to go to 3-7-1, because right now they're 3-6-1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you imagine if it was a 3-way tie at the top of the NFC East at 3-7-1? I kind of hope that happens. But yeah, I just the NFC East so bad. My fantasy football league is really bad too. They're kind of like the NFC East. I'm probably going to get in with a losing record. It's disgusting. But thankfully, we've got Baltimore and Pittsburgh to shape up the Turkey Day evening and cleanse everybody's palate from all those terrible afternoon games they got to watch. Detroit and Houston as well. Ugh. Yikes.
Yeah, it seems like you're always going to get one bad game on Thanksgiving. You can definitely count on that each year.
Yeah, because the Lions always play.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Man, the Steelers are looking pretty nasty, Brian.
Yeah.
They dominate the Jaguars. The Chiefs come away with a huge win against the Raiders. It's looking like those two teams are going to maybe be meeting in the AFC Championship as it looks now.
That's the collision course as it sits right now, for sure. But, man, the Raiders have played the Chiefs really well. I've been impressed the 2 times that they've played them. If they could bottle that up and play against everybody else that way, then the Raiders would be in business too. I just think the AFC has a lot of really good teams, so I don't think it's a shoo-in that we're going to see a Kansas City-Pittsburgh AFC Championship. I think that's probably the consensus right now, but I still think Baltimore is pretty good. I think Tennessee could play with some of those teams. Indianapolis, old gunslinger Rivers, got them going pretty good. So a handful of pretty solid teams in the AFC. And then the NFC, I have no idea. I mean, New Orleans, they played pretty well without Drew Brees this week, but there's some question marks there. Tom Brady is the quarterback of Tampa Bay, so they're always going to be in the mix. Don't know who's going to win the West. You've got the Rams, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks all vying for that position. So it's pretty interesting. It's open, Andy. I wouldn't say it's a wide open field, but it's an open field.
Brian, I have not heard a broadcaster say a receiver's open.
It's never happened.
I've never heard them say open. They only say wide open. Even when so Kelsey was pretty open on that last play when Mahomes threw the interception, but still there's a guy near him within a couple yards by the time he catches it. And there's so many other plays that you've seen and I've seen like that. And the broadcast, Nance, Joe Buck, all of them, they say wide open.
I know. And to me, like, Jim Nance walks on water. That guy can do no wrong. But there is such a thing as open. Wide open, I see wide open as you or I could make that throw. and it would be a completion in an NFL game. Like, that guy is wide open. You and me hit him. He was in stride, and he took off. If a receiver gets hit immediately when he receives the ball, that was not wide open. He might have been open. There may have been a window, but that's not wide open. Just drives me crazy. And, it's like open just doesn't exist. You're either wide open or you're covered. There's no in between.
Brian, real quickly, I want to get back to the playoff picture, particularly in the NFC, especially how it relates to this year's seeding. There will be 7 teams as opposed to 6 in normal years. So the 1 seed gets the bye. And if we factor in that NFC East division, of course, the winner of that will get a home game. They're going to, no matter what, be the 4 seed. And they would host a team like the Seahawks. So the Seahawks, for example, it would be better for them to lose their division. They would be the 5 seed playing on the road against the Eagles, because if you do potentially win your division and be the 2 seed as the Rams, you would be playing the Cardinals. If you're the Packers and you're the 3 seed, you're hosting the Buccaneers. Pretty interesting dynamic this year, bro.
Oh my gosh. That's like the one situation where I think it would be worth not winning the division. Like, of course you want to be at home and all that, but I understand when teams say, like, suck for luck, they want to get Andrew Luck, and that's one philosophy. But in this situation, like, it immediately impacts your playoff chances this year. If you are the 5 seed and you get to play against the 4 seed, you're going to be a prohibitive favorite. And the way football works, they'll probably lose. Like, Philadelphia will probably go to the NFC Championship game, or whoever wins the East, just to, throw salt. But that's tricky. I think I'd rather be the 5 seed. Just win, baby. Especially because the 2 seed doesn't get a bye anymore. Like, really, if you're not going to be the number 1 seed, there's no reason to win the division.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things play out the remainder of the NFL season. Well, my friends, that is going to do it for this edition of the BCSC. I want to thank my partner in crime, Brian Vilvin, for joining me. I am Andy Bishop. Good luck to the men's San Diego State basketball team as they tip off their season tomorrow against the number 21 seed UCLA Bruins. All the best to them, as well as the men's football team. We'll keep you updated all throughout the remainder of the year on Aztecs Athletics. Until next time, we'll see you later.